Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to a special edition of Have a Seat with Chris Hansen for what will be, no doubt, one of the most analyzed, scrutinized, and perhaps criticized interviews that you'll see this year. As you know, we've been investigating the case of Dahvie Vanity, Jesus Torres, who is accused, although not officially by law enforcement, but by many survivors, as many as 24, and we think maybe in the hundreds, perhaps thousands, of sexual assault involving women who were young at the time, 12, 13, 14 years old. One of the issues that's come up throughout all of this is who was around Dahvie Vanity when some of this was happening and what did they know? And people are speaking out about it. And my guest today is someone who possesses a very unique position in pop culture and business in the makeup world as an influencer, as a YouTube star in his own right, who was a music performer at one time and was on the same stage as Dahvie Vanity. And I'm very pleased to have Jeffree Star join me this afternoon from his home in California. Jeffree, how you doing with the pandemic and everything?
Hello, Chris. First of all, thank you so much for having me today.
My pleasure.
It's been crazy to have all the businesses shut down and everything. It's been a lot, but we're holding down the fort over here at Jeffree Star Cosmetics. We're doing all right.
Excellent. Excellent. You know, because you monitor social media and your people do, just like I do, that everybody has an opinion about you, this case, me, and this interview. And I've had suggestions and people tell me how to conduct this interview. And my philosophy on conducting interviews is to be a good listener. So that is exactly what I'm going to do with you today. Your initial thoughts on what has surfaced in the last several months on Dahvie Vanity. I mean, how do you characterize what you've heard and what do you think of it all?
So when I quit music, I really quit everything, meaning I didn't really talk to any of those people ever again until this date. So it wasn't shocking because Dobby's always been horrible, and we'll dive into all of that. I want to answer everyone's questions today, but I was happy that people are finally getting a voice, because back in the day, I don't think that a lot of people took things like this serious. The subject matter that we're going to discuss today and everything that he's been accused of, people back in the day did not take it as serious as they do now, which is so horrible. So I'm glad that things are really coming to light. And at the end of the day, the goal is for him to be sitting in a prison cell. So I'm ready to dive in. You know what I mean?
Well, take me back to those days in, the mid to late 2005, 2010, 2012. What was that music scene like and how did you get into it? What was happening in that scene?
It was very punk rock. And what I mean by that, it was a very crass and offensive culture. Whether it was electronic music or dance, we were in this, I call it the MySpace culture, because that was kind of the time frame. And things were just very different than how they were now. And it was very rock and roll. You know, we did a lot of things for attention, a lot of things to be offensive. And me and Dobby first met because I believe that he was actually a fan of me. And I remember, since we've spoken, I've dug through all my memories of when I first met that person, how it all even transpired. And Chris, he was a fan of me. And I remember him almost being kind of like trying to copy things that I did. And when he started music, it was because of my MySpace music, I believe.
And who was Jeffree Star back in those days? How would you best describe yourself?
Oh my God. Very offensive, loved attention, only child. And it was my mission to make people talk, whether it was in a positive way or a negative way. I just loved attention. So thinking about that person now, I don't even know who that person is, but yeah, it's been, I'm just thinking about all these memories and it's just like, it was really wild times. And a lot of it is not okay. And some of the things and things that I've said, like we've discussed, like I've said some really, really crazy stuff. So yeah, I regret a lot of those times, but I think it's made me who I am today. And I appreciate and I'm proud of who I am now, you know?
So you were what, 19 or so when you got into the music scene? 18, 19 in about what, 07, 08?
Exactly. 2006, I did my first song with a group called Hollywood Undead. That was very big on MySpace. Yeah, and then I went up all the way until 2013 when I quit. So it was a really crazy time in my life.
And describe how you actually met Dahvie Vanity, Jesus Torres.
It was through shows at like electronic shows or rock shows. When I was touring with other bands, him and his friends would start to come to the shows. And we met, I think, the first time in Florida when I was playing with some of my old MySpace music. And he really came up to me as kind of like a fan. And that's what I remember. And then when I saw him next, he had a band. It was called Blood on the Dance Floor, and he was starting to do shows. And I think in hopes of touring and working with the kind of crowd that we were in.
Ultimately, you shared a stage with Dahvie Vanity and Blood on the Dance Floor. What was that like?
So here's the thing. I think that there's a lot of misinformation out there. Blood on the Dance Floor and Jeffree Star, the musician, did a lot of tours separately. We only ever toured twice together. And people may know this or may not know this about me. I don't drink. I know there's conspiracies that I secretly drink. I am not a partier. So they were very into partying, drinking, alcohol. And my crew was not into that. We were stoners, and we didn't hang out a lot. So, but sharing a stage and being on tour, it was different times, and a lot of the people that opened for us, opening bands, we were all very similar in that we had offensive lyrics. It was very sexual. It was very about partying and just being crazy. So it just kind of fit. But when we were, and what do you mean like by on stage? Because should we talk about the infamous clip that is going around everywhere?
Yeah, let's get to that, because that seems to be, what is on a lot of people's minds. And we talked earlier about everybody having their own opinion on this and everybody wanting to hold you to a certain level of responsibility for what Dahvie Vanity allegedly did. So there's a clip. You're on stage with him. He grabs a girl who's identified as being 13 years old and for sure underage. And he makes a sexual move, I guess you could say, humping or grabbing her that way. So people want to say, because you were on stage when Dahvie Vanity did this, that somehow you should have reported that and gone to the police and said Dahvie Vanity is a predator targeting underage girls.
Right. So here's the thing. In those days, and maybe in still today's times, in the rock and roll world and the music world, people brought kids, adults, anyone in the crowd on stage to dance and have a good time. Now, him grinding on people, when you look at that now in context and they're underage, yes, it's completely disgusting. But everyone at every single show, whether it was the Blood on the Dance Floor show, my show, any rock show, you grabbed people on stage, you danced, and you threw them back in the crowd, or they jumped back in, and that was that. So me being on stage and us singing the song that we did back in the day together, yes, we would always grab people up and do that. But for some reason, I'm responsible for his actions. Absolutely not. And that's not what happens. You know what I mean? So I think the context of Jeffree being on stage and endorsing someone grinding against a minor is so wrong and not accurate at all.
When you look back to that rock star lifestyle, do you remember things that Dahvie Vanity did that would horrify you today?
Oh, 100%. The things that I've seen were very offensive. And looking back, it was the way that he was such a master manipulator at making things seem not as crazy as they were. So yeah, I've witnessed him be very appropriate with people that were underage. Have I witnessed an actual crime? No. Chris, absolutely not.
There's a story about you coming on one of the tour buses and saying hi and bye and leaving and maybe looking the other way on some of this activity Dahvie was involved in with underage women. Characterize that.
Yeah, I would love to talk about that. Sure. So first of all, I was there. All these people speculating and making things up, they were not there. I was on tour with these people, and we had, whether we were in a van, because when you're broke, and before we all kind of made it bigger, we were touring in vans, then RVs, and then tour buses at the end. And this is what's crazy, Chris, is that mothers would bring their daughters on the tour bus. So I never saw minors alone with them, never. But there would be moms who would bring their kids, whether they were underage or not, on his bus. And let's say I popped in to say hi to Jay, because me and Dobby were never best friends. I want to be very clear about that. Me and Jay were very close. And their violin player, Brandy, who was on tour with them for years and years. Jay and Brandy were my friends. So when I would go on the bus for a short amount of time and visit, whether we said hi, we smoked weed, we just talked and catched up, there was always moms with these people. And when there was girls on the bus, obviously I never knew their age, but no one ever looked really, really young. So it was bizarre to me that he would do, and I would love to tell people that something that was kind of disturbing to me is that he would bring mom and daughters on the bus, and sometimes it would be threesomes. Sometimes he would have sex with the mothers. And this is what his band members would tell me when I would leave the bus.
Do you think Jay, and we're talking about Jay Von Monroe, who has also been on this show and sort of talked about himself being a victim of Dahvie Vanity in terms of both being, unpaid for some things, being abused emotionally in some ways. Do you think he knew more than what he has said?
Listen, I wish that Jay would come back on your show or go to police or law enforcement and help put Dobby in prison, because he 100% has to have seen things that he's not telling people. Dobby brainwashed Jay almost like a cult. He controlled him, he fed him, he controlled his money, the way he looked and dressed. And it was very, at the end, I just felt so sad for Jay. Because he was so lost. And I think that Dobby really brainwashed him. I don't know what he has against him. Is there contracts? Is there dark secrets that Jay did that he knows against him? I don't know, but I'm not sure why Jay is not telling the truth. So Jay, if you're watching this now or you're watching this in the future, you need to do the right thing, because you were there. You lived with this man for like a third of your life, and he knows things that he's not saying. I 100% believe that.
Jay struck me, and I'm just being honest here, as somebody who I've not met him in person, but I had a number of phone calls with him. I talked to him, just like I'm talking to you. He struck me as a sweet guy who's carved out a piece of this business and continues to work very hard today, who got into a bad situation with Dahvie Vanity, probably saw more than he talks about today, but really didn't have the evil in him that's alleged to be inside Dahvie Vanity. Is that a fair take on that?
Yeah, I mean, I thought I knew Jay pretty well. He just seemed like a lost and broken kid, and he told me a lot of his backstory as a kid, and I just felt like Dobby preyed on him being a broken person, and he manipulated him and really got him to be like his sidekick. And Jay didn't have his own bank account. Dobby would run things through the band through Jay's tax ID without him knowing what it really meant. And it was almost like Dobby was the parent and Jay was a child. It was very just like disturbing to watch.
What's interesting to me, Jeffree, is that, I've interviewed young women on this show. Jessie Slaughter, for instance, Damian Lanhart is her real name, who was 10 when she first met Dobby. Tells horrifying stories about how he manipulated, how he almost specifically had a sixth sense where he could focus in on these young women who were the most vulnerable women. Yet he'd have other relationships with women who would write his lyrics, help him with his songs. And I've talked to them too, and they will soon be on this show. With whom he did not misbehave. It was almost like a Jekyll and Hyde situation where he knew if he needed this person's services, he would treat them one way. And if he was looking for, illegal sex with somebody who's underage, he would do it another way. Is that fair? Is that what you see here?
Yeah, because when talking to a lot of people from the past, some of them literally have seen nothing and they're like, yeah, he's great. And other people have really horrific stories. So that 100% makes sense. It's like if he needed to use you for something, then he's only going to show you his best version, which he did to me a lot of the times. He wanted to use me. He wanted to get bigger from doing a song together, going on tour, trying to use my name. So I could definitely see that 100% happening.
How would you describe Dahvie Vanity as a guy, first of all, as a human being?
In what's like back then when I knew him?
Yeah, back then when you knew him, I mean, what was the conversation? What was the vibe you got from him? How was the relationship? How would you best characterize all of that?
There's a few stages of it. To me, it was like this kid almost like wouldn't go away as like a fan. And then he became kind of bigger on MySpace. And it was almost like, okay, well, they're kind of in the same genre. They're not going away. So let's see what they're about. And this was before Jay was in the band, because there was an old singer. I'm sure you know that. I think his name is Garrett. Like way back in the day when I very first met them. So it's almost like he went from being a fan to like a musician, kind of in the same playing field as me, but he always just seemed like he tried too hard. Like he really, really wanted to fit in. But you know, Chris, when you meet people and they always just have like a weird vibe, that's what I always got from him. And whether it's creepy or weird, people might take that out of context, but he always just seemed a little off.
And what was the talk about him with underage girls in those days? You talked about mothers bringing their daughters onto the bus, hanging out, you know, inviting fans up on the stage. What do you think was really happening back then?
It's scary to think about because you just don't know. And I see a lot of people that think, oh, Jeffree, you brought your fans around him. And it's like, we have to stop that mentality. I did not bring my fans around him at all. I think we should be clear that a lot of the times, let's say I would play first, a lot of kids would leave. So do we have a similar audience? Yes, absolutely. But I wasn't in their circle. So, you know what I mean?
How much time did you actually spend with him when you guys were performing? I mean, was it like at the end of the show, you would go one way, he would go his way?
Yeah, like when you're on tour with someone, you see them when you're checking in and doing sound check. It's called like loading in all the equipment. And you see people for glimpses of the day and you talk for a little bit of time. But there was like maybe a year where I really befriended him. And then on that last tour, we literally didn't speak at all. And he was very jealous of me. He didn't want any of his band members speaking with me. And it was very chaotic. So yes, there was a time when we were friends. And I would love to talk about, because so many people, they want us to talk about my tweets, Chris. And I think that it's very important to address it. Why did I tweet certain things about him being a piece of shit and seeing things? And why did I work with him again? I really think that we should talk about that.
That's where I was headed, Jeffree. So there were a string of tweets when you really tore into Dahvie Vanity, called him all kinds of things, accused him of what many people are saying about him today, what many of the survivors have said about him. What was behind that, and what was it that you actually said and meant in those tweets?
Yeah, so back in the day, there was a lot of crazy rumors about Dobby. There was never any criminal charges against him. He was never put in jail for, I know there was one instance, but he never served real jail time. There was no criminal case against him. So there was a moment when a lot of us in the music world were not sure what was really going on. So it was being in that moment of not knowing, really believing it all because it was very believable. But then at the end of the day, there was no proof. So yes, I tweeted out a lot of things. Did I ever see an actual sexual crime? Absolutely not. Did I see weird, inappropriate behavior? Yes. Did I call him a child molester? Yes, because at the time I really believed it. I thought that what people were saying and the weird things that were behind the scenes going on, that they were all true. And later, did I think that some of it was untrue? Yes. And we're going to dive into that, and I'd love to explain why. But I meant those tweets at the time, and it was a time where there was a lot of us all on the same page and hyping it all up and saying, hey, this person is really this. So at that moment when I tweeted all those things, yes, I fully believed it.
And what did you believe at the time? And what was the reason for sending those tweets out, Jeffree?
Well, I felt that he was getting a platform that was bigger than I ever thought he would reach, right? And I didn't want my audience to think that if they were true, which he, being the master manipulator that he was, proved to a lot of people at that time that he didn't do anything, that he really wasn't going to jail, because he never went back to jail after that one incident. So he really tricked us all into thinking, hey, I'm actually not that person, which was really scary. And one of the biggest regrets of being dumb enough to believe someone and to getting manipulated into thinking that he's, an okay person.
Were you around during the Colorado incident when he was questioned by authorities for this alleged statutory rape?
No, but I heard about it because obviously being in the same scene, it was like, whoa, this happened. And I remember people telling me that his bandmate took the van and all the money and decided to go on the tour without him while he was in jail. And then all of a sudden, a month later, Dobby's just back on tour and no one ever heard about the incident again. And he really buried it as like, oh, this girl didn't get what she wanted from me, or I don't know what was the actual context, but he lied and really made us all think that this girl was lying. You know what I mean? And nothing ever happened after that. So yeah, there was a point where no one knew what to believe.
The incident in question, actually, I'm told, and based upon police reports I've seen, and we're digging into this as we speak for next week, involved actually two young women in one night, one of whom was pulled aside backstage and forced into a sexual act. And you're right, there ultimately were no criminal charges. There was an investigation, and he walked away from it. Did that taint him in your eyes just because of his behavior, because of that investigation? And at the end of the day, what responsibility did you have as a performer who was affiliated with him to report anything? And what could you have reported at the time?
Yeah, and I think that's what a lot of people don't understand, is that I don't have anything to report. If I actually saw and witnessed something, he would be rotting in jail this very moment. But I never saw anything besides inappropriate behavior. Like the things on stage at that time were not very crazy. Looking back, it's very wrong, but I never witnessed anything that could be used as evidence. And I think somehow people think I do, and I'm not saying it. So for the record, no one has any contracts against me. No one has any secrets against me. Dahvie knows nothing about me. And yeah, it hurts that people would even think that, but I get it. I tweeted out a lot of stuff and then I worked with him again. So Chris, I think I would love to explain why I worked with him again, because people don't understand that.
Let's go there. You send out these tweets, and yet in 2012, I believe, correct? You go back out on tour and essentially make public statements that
and a lot of people want
a good guy, and you're supporting him at this point. Well, how do you square that with people who question?
Yeah, well, a lot of people know I'm very dramatic and I say things all the time in a very grandiose manner. So everyone wants me to address every single tweet. Let's go. Me calling Dahvie my brother, that's just me being dramatic. Dahvie was never my brother. We were never best friends. You can think that 100% not the case, but let's talk about me tweeting that he's a monster and then working with him again. So when I was doing my last tours, there was a big list, right? Who was gonna play the opening bands before me, who was gonna play after me, and their name was on the list from their agent. And they were very big at the time. And the allegations, he made them all kind of go away. He manipulated the music scene and he was getting big tours. And I, at the time, was friends with Jay and Brandy, his bandmates. So me and Dobby hadn't spoken in a while, and he had reached out to me again, and he's like begging me to not believe what everyone had said. So I did my own research and I reached out to Jay. Of course, Jay. Never seen anything, Jeffree. Dobby's great. Okay, but that wasn't good enough for me. So I reached out to Brandy. Now, Brandy Wynn was a band member of Blood on the Dance Floor for years and years. She's a mother of 4. I said, Brandy, have you ever seen anything illegal for real? Because our agents are trying to put this tour together with them on it, and I'm not gonna do it. And I would never put him in any light ever again if you have seen something. because if that's the case, I would rather die than work with him. And she, as a mother, said, Jeffree, I've seen inappropriate things, but nothing illegal. You know, Dobby is offensive and crass and da-da-da-da-da. I took her word for it. Well, and I don't, and maybe he never did anything around her. I don't know. But she lived with this person on the tour bus. She's older. She's 40 years old. And I took her word and I booked them on that last tour.
And I will give you this, Jeffree. I had a conversation with another, by his standards, by the music industry of that type standards, somebody who was also a little bit older, who basically said the same thing, that after she was done performing, she was calling her kids, and she's going to do an interview yet, but we haven't finalized the terms, so I don't want to use her name, but it's somebody who you're going to know, and somebody who people who followed this case are going to know, but somebody who has got credibility, who basically said, look, I live with this guy. Would he disappear? Did I suspect certain things? But I never actually saw him commit a crime with an underage girl. Now, again, in the hindsight stage that we're in now, and after having interviewed so many of the survivors, there's a lot of evidence against him. But what you're telling me today is that you never, ever saw him commit statutory rape. Ever?
No, 100% not. I've never seen a sexual crime in person ever. And it's offensive that people would suggest that. But I get that my tweets are very misconstrued. They're loud and they seem a certain way. You
called him, though, at that time, some very nasty.
Oh, I called him a child molester.
A child molester. I mean, you came right out and said, this guy's why did you do it at that time?
Because there was everyone talking it up like it was like he was literally the devil, and looking back, he is, but at that time it seemed like everyone was gassing it up. And as someone that was very misunderstood in my music career and in my music and in my entire career, I felt a soft spot for them, and I felt like, you know, people are just trying to villainize them like they've done to me, and I stupidly fell for that trap. And putting them on that last tour of mine was one of the biggest regrets that I'll have, but I can't take it back.
What was it like on that last tour, 2012? Take me inside.
Oh my God. I had a great time. It was the last tour I ever did. I was signed to the musician Akon. He was my manager. And I don't know, there's this like myth that somehow I worked with Dobby again for financial stability. Chris, when you tour and have a tour bus, that stuff is so expensive. I left that tour with really not any money. So for people to think that I did anything financial to work with them again, it's an actual joke. So towards the end and on that entire tour in the year of 2012 and beyond, we were not friends. He was very jealous of my success, of how things were growing for me. And it just turned really bitter.
When was the last time you had any meaningful conversation with Dobby?
Oh God. So the last time I saw Dobby and Jay was in San Diego at a house that they were renting. I think they were starting to like not have money anymore, and Jay was panicking. And it was like 2014, I believe, is the last time I saw them ever face to face. And after the tour, I didn't speak to Dahvie, but Jay said, hey, will you come visit us? We have a new house, da da da. And something just felt weird. So I drove down there, and it was the first time where I saw Jay crack, where he finally, I think, was ready to maybe jump ship, because I could not believe that Jay stuck around with that man for so long. And Jay seemed very scared and was asking me kind of business and personal questions, alluding that he wanted to escape.
Did you have any meaningful conversation with Dobby during that visit in San Diego? What did you say to him? What did he say to you? I mean, Jay sounded like he wanted out of this deal, which is
and Dobby wouldn't really ever leave him alone to talk, but he finally did. And me and Dobby didn't say much at all. He tried to hint that he wanted to do more music and do this and let's do an album, and I was just like, you know, pretending to entertain it. Absolutely not.
You know, and I know that by doing this interview, people on Twitter other social media perhaps will target you. They're going to pick this apart, as I said.
Oh, of course.
Analyzed, criticized, characterized. People come after me just because we did the interview, and you know, I've been around a long time, and none of that bothers me. But they're going to come at you and say, "Whoa, we saw this video on YouTube from 8, 9, 10 years ago where there's Jeffree Star in a bathroom saying that he had something going on with this fellow the night before, and he's sick to his stomach from drinking." And they're gonna make you look like a predator here.
Oh, of course, and they always have.
What do you say about that, though? Because look, it's not a flattering video.
No, but every little clip that people piece together, they never either show the full one or read the caption to that video. So yes, in the video, do I suggest that me and that drunk person did something sexual? Yes. Well, no, absolutely not. In the caption, I literally say I would never let that disgusting person touch me. But when you clip the whole entire caption off and just show the little clip of him in the bathroom and down the stairs, of course it looks probably crazy, but that's a drunk person throwing up in a toilet. What happened after? What happened before? No one ever wants to ask any questions. They just want to copy and paste and write their own narrative. That video was on MySpace and had millions of views. Later, that dude asked me to delete it and said, "Hey, I'm trying to do a serious job in government," and he lived in San Diego. "Please delete that video." So I deleted it. Was it offensive and crazy and maybe funny back then? Yeah, but 10 years ago, that Jeffree loved attention. We called them Jeffree Star victims. We used to film homeless people doing crazy stuff, which is not okay. But that was the time, and it was to be offensive and film crazy stuff. So we met that guy at a bar. He came home with us. Nothing sexual happened. He was too drunk. And my friend Roxy, who people are thinking is someone else, that is not Lipstick Nick, so everyone please stop harassing Nicole. That was my friend Roxy, and she was gonna hook up with that guy, never did, and we started filming it because he puked all over my floor, and I was shocked. So yes, you see us throwing him down the balcony, and what happened after, Chris? No one asked. So thank you for asking.
What happened after?
That person, we called a cab later. They sat outside of my apartment that people have all seen on my YouTube channel, and he sat there for 30 minutes. We called him a cab. We shoved him in. And then we later talked on MySpace, and, he was really embarrassed, but it was a drunk person. Nothing sexual happened, just like the caption said. But I get it. People want to create a certain story to copy and paste and fit it into Dahvie Vanity, which is just so offensive. It's like, I'm not going to be the scapegoat and pretend to see things I didn't see. But also, we're talking about a very serious subject, and this person needs to go to jail. So it's like, I don't want people to use me, and they're going to say that this is selfish, and I just don't care. Don't use me to distract from the victims and the justice that they need, and putting this person away.
Well, I think that's an important thing to recognize here, which is you agreed to come talk to me on this program because I'm doing an investigation of Dahvie Vanity, and I'm giving a voice to the survivors, victims, and there are many more to come, and trying to hold him accountable and seek some sort of justice in this case. I've done it with the Odyssean case, the YouTube psycho brat from Washington State. We've done it with countless other criminal cases over 40 years. This isn't new to me. It's a bit of a new medium. I mean, I'm a reporter. I'm not really a YouTuber, even though this is a big event because you're here and talking about your experiences, which I appreciate. It would be easy for you not to do this. Why was it so important for you to speak out now and here?
Yeah, so there's a misconception that I didn't want to ever speak out about these things. No, I woke up a week ago to this conversation starting. And it took me a few days to process what people were saying. And at the end of the day, when I really figured out, you know what? There's so many things happening now. I initially was going to go on Snapchat or Instagram and say, hey, this is really what happened. But when I found out you were investigating him and it was a lot deeper, and there was actually so many people that had come forward, you were the first person and really only person I could think to really talk about the subject. Like, you've been doing this for a very long time. And the fact that you're actually trying to put this person away and give it a light, I felt like it was very important to talk to you first.
And what do you hope this achieves? I mean, look, there are going to be people who say, well, Jeffree's going to come on. He's going to try to shape his image. He's just trying to protect his makeup empire. He's going to do this.
There's no image to shape. Like I'm all I am is telling you everything that I know. And what I do know is that I'm surprised that there are not more people calling his old manager, the tour manager that helped him master and manipulate the band and all these girls. I know that a few band members have come forward. I didn't know that until you told me recently. But all the band members, the merch people, they all lived with that person and they all have stories and they all need to come forward and share them. I don't know if he has NDAs on these people or what really happened behind the scenes, but they need to break them and they need to tell the truth.
We have also heard this week that there are victim survivors who are ready to come forward to law enforcement. And this has happened before. There's been not just the law enforcement investigation in Colorado, the reference that I talked about, but there was one in Pinellas County, Florida, West Coast of Florida. And there's a big movement growing. I think there was a tendency in the day to say, okay, do we have physical evidence? Okay, he says, she said that she was of age, and it was a rock and roll concert with a bunch of people with different colored hair and severe makeup. He says, she says. Now we're in a different time. We're in the Me Too movement. People are being held more accountable. We've seen,
and they should, and I think it's so important.
We've seen Epstein and Weinstein and R. Kelly, but these cases, and I've got another one with Peter Nygaard coming up, but these cases have taken sometimes 10, 20, 30 years in the Nygaard case before some of these allegations are taken seriously and properly investigated by law enforcement authorities. What's it going to take for Dahvie Vanity to face justice, in your opinion, given what you know?
I think that there has to be a legal case put against him, because if Harvey Weinstein and Bill Cosby can actually go to prison, then Dobby can definitely go to prison. I don't know what exactly, like, what does it really take, Chris? Does people have to come together? Does it have to be with lawyers? What is the first step? Because I know you're helping people have a voice, and
I always go back to this example. I was on the Epstein case years ago, and what we tried to do, and I've told this story before, was to fashion a sting operation to catch him in the act, a la the Predator investigations. We overthought it. We made it too complicated. We couldn't penetrate his security. But in the meantime, the Miami Herald, to their credit, kept on this story and day to day to day, and got very brave victims to come forward and use their identities and use their faces. And that is basically what allowed the Southern District of New York U.S. attorney to make this case. And the U.S. attorney in the Southern District will actually say that. So my theory on this is by, hearing the voice of the victims, getting inside the mind of the predator criminal, as we are doing here today, you can create an environment where justice is achieved. And we're doing that here. We're doing that with Onision, and we're doing it with many other cases that are now being worked up to get to the point where they are talked about on this show. So I appreciate you coming forward, and I'll take the heat. People want to say, oh, you should ask him this, you should ask that. Well, I've been asking questions of a lot of people for a lot of years. People want to say, well, was he paid? Is he paying to be on the show? No, that's laughable. It's ridiculous. Nobody pays to get on this show, and nobody.
I don't do paid gigs.
No. Exactly. Yeah,
it's offensive to say that. But I think so. I've been, I do skim the internet once in a while. I used to really skim it a lot. Nowadays, I don't skim so often, Chris, because people can be crazy. But there's so many things. There's so many things that people are trying to connect that have nothing to do with Dahvie Vanity being prosecuted. So I see that there's a lot of questions that people want you to ask you about things that have nothing to do with what's actually important. So, me, I'm an open book. I think people really need to stop I'm always going to say it, copy and pasting everything from my past to a certain situation. I think that if more victims were willing to show their faces and really put this man away, that's what it's going to do. Or you're the one that actually shockingly told me that this person, Dahvie, is actively selling merch and online. Correct?
If you go to Instagram right now, Dark Arts Official, I believe is the.
I tried. I've been blocked for years, so I didn't know that it was there.
Yeah, Dahvie Vanity.
Yeah, I'm blocked.
So he's out there right now, and I'm being told, and there are people in this community who are reporting back to me and giving me identities of 16-year-old girls who are communicating with him, sending videos, sexually explicit, suggestive videos and pictures to him, and he's orchestrating this so there's no evidence. Go to, like the stories that we've heard on this show over and over again. Go to your room, don't tell your mother, come up to the tour bus,
That's so disgusting.
So he's out there right now. What do you say to any young fan who still may be following Dahvie Vanity?
Look, I can't believe that he has any fans left. So when I found out that he was actively on social media and that there are still regular girls out there writing fan things to him, it really made me sick to my stomach. So if you are currently actively following that person or have any interaction, please cease doing that. He is a monster. I don't care what anyone says about me. Dahvie Vanity is disgusting. He's a monster, and he really needs to be rotting in prison forever. Chris, I'm going to be very offensive here and say that if I was the judge and I could give Dobby a punishment, it would be the firing squad. Like he really makes me that sick. So for anyone to try to act like I still care about this person, I'm still friends with this person, I still know this person, I would love to go on the record and say absolutely not on all levels. I don't support him. Anything he's currently doing is so wrong. And I cannot wait for the day for us to sit there and see him in court and in handcuffs.
What does this case say, Jeffree, about fame, the internet, and the environment that we live in today?
Oof, it's scary. I think that if you're a parent watching this, that the internet has turned really, really dark, and there's so much ugliness out there, and people prey on weak people. And that's what Dobby did his entire career, whether it was with children or band members or anyone around him. He manipulated everyone. And people need to stop falling for it. I can't believe that there's still people actively thinking that he's great or that what people are saying aren't true. That's what makes me sick. The fact that he has any fans left is shocking to me. So if you're watching this and you're unsure of who he is, now you know. I'm going to say it for real. I may have said it 10 years ago. I'm going to say it right now. Dahvie Vanity, we all know, is a piece of shit. And his time is coming.
You have enormous sway in the makeup world, obviously, celebrity influencing. Potentially millions of people will watch this show over the next few weeks and live right now. I'd like to think because Chris Hansen, but the reality is that Jeffree Star brings enormous celebrity cachet to this show. There's no way around it. I mean, people were excited all week that you're going to be here. People who work with me and for me, Gabrielle, her daughter Lauren. I mean, everybody, look, it is what it is. You possess a very unique and because of that, by extension, powerful position in pop culture and in business. How do you use that? How do I use my cachet when you think about it and the internet? How do we help the victims in your mind? I mean, what do you think? You've had time to think about this. You knew you were going to be on this show.
I think that it's amazing that you're giving them a voice and someone that's actually respected. Okay. No offense or shade to what we call them drama channels, Chris, in the YouTube world, or people that report news. A lot of people do not have great intentions. A lot of people are making money off of this story, and I think that's wrong. But the fact that you have a real voice, you're respected, and you're giving these girls a way to tell the world finally what happened is so important, and I have a lot of respect for you for doing that.
One of the things that you and I touched on briefly in our conversations leading up to this interview this week is, okay, we're going to hold people's feet to the fire, Dahvie Vanity, the people around him, the tour managers you discussed, the fellow bandmates we've discussed here.
Yes.
But in the meantime, and I always get in a little bit of a quandary here because I tiptoe between journalist and somebody who is being an activist in this arena. And it's not always easy, but I feel some responsibility towards the survivors. And I don't like using the word victim because they are survivors. who in many cases do not have the financial wherewithal to get therapy, to get help, to talk to somebody. Law enforcement will do what law enforcement does, and we will see action here. I can guarantee it.
Yeah, 100%.
Based upon the facts of the case, and based upon the things like what we're doing right now. But what do we do? You're very philanthropic. I mean, what do we do for some of these young women who really just need therapy? And I know it's not an easy question. I may be putting you on the spot here, but is there something we should be doing here?
I mean, a lot of the times I see people create, I don't want to say the word foundation is correct, but even like GoFundMe's for survivors, you know what I mean? Starting somewhere where people can donate, where they can then take that money, whether it's for legal, mental health, and do stuff like that. I think that could be really impactful.
Well, I'm going to work on that, and I'm going to keep you posted on all that. And in the meantime, just to button up this part of the interview, what do you say to Dahvie Vanity as we sit here today? If he's watching the show, what do you say to Jesus Torres?
Honestly, Jesus Torres, I have nothing to say to you. I can't wait, like the rest of the world, to see you sitting behind bars and finally getting what you deserve. Chris, he doesn't deserve a monologue of mine. He doesn't deserve a monologue of yours. He deserves silence, and he deserves sitting and staring at a cement cell for the rest of his life.
This is going to be interesting because already we've got, next Wednesday show scheduled with, more survivors, victims, and I think we're going to end up talking about that Colorado case that we referenced earlier. But in the meantime,
yeah,
when you look back at the music career, at the time you spent around him, was that one of the reasons you got out of that business? Just seeing this lifestyle that he was leading, seeing where he was with it?
Part of it, yes. The music industry is very evil. Now that people have seen like the Harvey Weinsteins, that was going on with producers, with other musicians, and the whole music scene was so toxic. It was definitely a very huge part. And it wasn't just Dobby, you know what I mean? There was other people that I've known in the past, or that we didn't know, that were just in the same scene, that have been prosecuted, and horrible things have come out. And there was just too much what ifs back then. And the music industry was turning so ugly and dark. It went from something that was so fun and great, just so ugly. And yeah, I was tired of it all.
What was the final straw? Was there one seminal moment when you said, I got to reinvent myself. I got to get out of this. I got to go do something else. And what got you into the makeup space?
Yeah, the problem with the music industry is people love to steal money. You see it with huge artists like Kesha and Dr. Luke, and people that are in these horrendous contracts. I was in a horrendous contract twice. I didn't have any business sense back then. And it was everyone just stealing my money. And I went from being self-made musician, making a few million, and then literally having nothing and relying on my manager and people to, they got me under control. And I was just ready to fully quit. And I was actually miserable. The music industry had sucked out all my happiness, and I was in the worst place mentally.
Who is Jeffree Star today?
Jeffree Star is a 34-year-old entrepreneur, and I'm just proud of all of what I've done. I flipped literally nothing into something really massive. I know I've had a lot of controversies. I've said a lot of dumb shit in my past, and I will always live with those things. I will always be sorry for those things. But the person that I am today, I'm so proud of, Chris, and I have a very big business sense, and I'm very proud of all the things that I've created, and minus all the drama and tea that people love. I just want to inspire people to be themselves, to not just be compliant with what I'm saying it wrong. Like, people just get stuck in a rut, and I don't want people to do that, because I got stuck in a rut. But I finally had the courage to quit and leave what I didn't want. What wasn't making me happy anymore. So I think that if you can just find what makes you happy career-wise, it's just so fulfilling. From someone that was miserable for a lot of their life, I've never been happier. And I'm so happy I quit music. I say it a lot. It was one of my biggest things that I'm not I mean, yeah, I'm proud. I'm proud that I quit, because it was scary to leave everything behind, but it was the best decision I ever made.
And what do you think, Jeffree, has been the key to your success in the arena you're in now?
I think being authentic and just really being yourself now. Like we've referenced a lot in this interview, I used to not fully really be authentic, and I wanted attention and I wanted to fit in, and I do not want any of those things now. And it's taken me a lot of soul searching to find happiness, but you just got to stick to who you are, and you got to be original. You really got to be original, especially in the beauty or makeup world. There's so much out there. There's a lot of noise. You got to create something special that the audience has never seen before.
You're known for helping people in need, especially during the COVID-19 pandemic. What have you been trying to achieve by that? You've given money away to people. Not
I do
it in a show-out way, but what's behind that? How did that get started?
Yeah, I've been doing it ever since COVID started. I've been doing it before. A lot of times on my channel, Chris, I give away money, crazy expensive handbags. And I just want people to feel like it's not so unattainable. And I love giving away outlandish things that other influencers or celebrities won't do or have never thought of doing. But minus all that fun, this is a very serious time. And with the virus affecting so many people, I teamed up with a philanthropist named Bill on Twitter. We gave away a lot of money. I've been giving away a lot of my own money. And I do it every few days and every week. And it's just to make people smile, inspire, and to give back to my supporters. The other day I gave 50K to 50 people in need. I've done it several times, sometimes publicly, sometimes not. I'll read people's stories at night and I'll just send them money, whether it's to help with their vet bills, to put food in their fridge. So many people are in a time of need, and I love giving. I've always loved giving. Even when I had barely anything, I loved giving. So I'm trying to do my part, inspire people to keep going. So I know that people can think there's motives behind giving away money. Then go give away yours, because I like making people smile.
Well, that's the other thing. People are going to say, okay, well, he's doing this to compensate for something else, or his past, or his dark rock star life. What do you say to that?
Oh, I'm so bored of hearing that. I'm so bored. Like, if someone's spending their time on that thought, they really need to go focus and help someone in need. Like, go make someone else smile, or go make someone else's day, or go donate your time, because right now the country, the world, we're suffering.
What's the lesson of the entire Dahvie Vanity experience up until now? What does it say about fame? What does it say about young people? What does it say about predators?
It's scary how fame can give predators such a big light, whether they're music producers, singers, or actors. All these famous people that have abused their power in such a sick way, it's horrifying. But I'm glad that it's put a spotlight on it and everyone is aware. And hopefully behind the scenes, most of it, if not all, completely stop now that everyone is talking about it and it's a conversation.
Jeffree Star, are there any final thoughts, anything else you want people to know this afternoon?
Listen, if there's anything I can ever do moving forward to help Dahvie Vanity be in jail, I am here. I know a lot of people, whether you don't believe me, you're disappointed, you already had a preconceived notion about me, or you really, truly are listening to what I'm saying today. It's just me. It's my truth. Whether you believe it or not, this is me. And I'm so sorry to everyone that has been affected by this person. If anyone was a fan of them through me, I'm so sorry. And hopefully, not hopefully, we know justice will be served. It's just when, and I cannot wait for that time.
Jeffree Star, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to be on this show today, on this Sunday. Stay healthy, stay home if you can, and stay in touch with us here, because this story is a long way from being over. Take care.
Exactly. Thank you so much, Chris. I'll talk to you soon.
All right, Jeffree. Thank you. Jeffree Star, everyone. Really insightful, really powerful. I think, as we said at the beginning of the interview, people are going to say what they want to say about Jeffree Star, about me. But at the end of the day, the most critical thing to remember is this is an investigation of Dahvie Vanity, Jesus Torres. This is a forum for survivors. And at the end of the day, there could be more than hundreds to get their voices heard. And they're going to be heard on this channel. Next week on Have a Seat with Chris Hansen, you're going to see more on the COVID-19 pandemic, as Jeffree and I discussed on Tuesday. And on Wednesday, we will continue right here with our investigations into Dahvie Vanity, as well as the YouTube psychopath from Washington State. Thanks for sharing part of your Sunday with me. This will obviously be up on the YouTube channel for some time to come. Have a very pleasant rest of the day. As I said to Jeffree, stay safe, stay home, stay healthy. Remember, I'll be watching.